Good morning, family. Thank you so much for tuning in with us, and happy Monday to all of you. If you haven't had a chance, please go back to Wednesday's devotional with Pastor Robbins and also Friday's devotional with Pastor Estes as we're looking at Passion Week or Holy Week. And today, I want to kind of maybe talk about something that isn't normally talked about. I want to talk about a little village called Bethany. And the question that I want you to think about in your heart, in your mind, your prayer is, do you have a Bethany? Do you have a Bethany? Now, if that doesn't make sense right now, don't worry, we'll get into that. But the reason why I want to ask you is, do you have a Bethany? Is because when we look at Jesus's life, he had a Bethany, right? He had this village that he went to all the time. Now remember, Bethany's not a person, Bethany's a village. And Jesus had this place, and that place was called Bethany. Now Bethany is a place that he often hung out at. Bethany was the place that he'd go to find peace and rest. Bethany is the place where his good friends, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, they all lived in Bethany. Uh, Jesus also went to Simon the leper's house, right? They had dinner there, and Jesus had dinner there, and that's where Simon lived, Bethany. At that same place, at that dinner, Jesus was anointed. His feet were anointed with oil and oils and perfumes as Mary came and just kind of just anointed his feet. And Jesus even said, hey, this is kind of preparing me for my burial, for when I'm going to die. Um, Bethany is also, like I said, the place that Mary, Martha, there. But I would say Bethany is the place where Jesus performed his greatest miracle. And that miracle is he rose Lazarus from the dead, right? John chapter 11. He had been dead already for 3 days, and yet he comes to Bethany. And there he raises his great friend Lazarus from death back to life. And not only that, but post death, right, into resurrection, post resurrection, Jesus leads his disciples as far out as to Bethany, as Luke records. Luke will record him going to Bethany, taking his disciples there and giving them their mission and telling them, kind of what's next and how Jesus, is going to come back again. But so the reason why I want to ask you about this question is, do you have a Bethany? And here's what I want to talk about. It's found in Desire of Ages, page 524. And here's what Ellen G. White writes in Desire of Ages. She says, the Savior had no home of his own. He didn't own a house. Think about that. He doesn't own a house. He doesn't have a home of his own. And he was dependent, listen to this, the Savior of the world, our King, the King of the universe, he was dependent on the hospitality of his friends and his disciples. And often, when he was tired, when he was weary, and when he was thirsting and longing for human fellowship, he had been glad to escape to this peaceful household. That household was Lazarus' household, right? Lazarus, Mary, and Martha in Bethany. He'd go to their house. Why? To escape, to be away from the suspicion and the jealousy of the Pharisees, of these religious people. Here he found a sincere welcome and pure friendships. Here he could speak with simplicity and perfect freedom, knowing that his words would be understood and treasured. Our Savior appreciated a quiet home and interested listeners. He longed for human tenderness, for courtesy, and for affection. So I want you to think about, when I say, do you have a Bethany? Do you have a place that you feel safe, right? Do you have a town, a place, a home, a group of friends? What is your safe place? What is your place that you like to go and kind of get your, as it were, your batteries recharged? And here's Jesus, he's going to spend his last week, right, on earth, and the place that he chooses to often go back to, even after the triumphal entry. Pastor Robin spoke about that on Wednesday. When he was done with that, he went back, right? He went back to Bethany. And even after he flipped the tables, as Pastor Esses talked about, where did he go? He went back to Bethany. He retreated. And although he grew up in Nazareth, Bethany would be the place that Jesus would often go back to find that connection, to feel right, like people, he could talk to people and people understood him, that it wasn't just the place where people were waiting for him to perform miracles. It wasn't the place where people were waiting to see if they could catch him. And like I said, the religious people were jealous of him, but Jesus went to Bethany. Now, do you have a Bethany? I want you to keep that in mind. Do you have a Bethany? Now, here's the other thing that is like a wow factor for me. Bethany, it means two different things. It means house of figs, literally like a figs, like of the fruit. But it also means house of affliction, house of misery, right? This house of lamentation. Why? Because Bethany wasn't a place that when you go on vacation, you want to take your family out. It's like, hey, let's go to Bethany. No, that's not the place you want to go to. And yet, for Jesus, it was. While we often, and the world often looks for the glitz and the glamour and the vacation mode and the, kicking off your shoes and, just living a life of luxury, that wasn't Bethany. Bethany was the place of the quote unquote the nobodies. Bethany's was the place of those who were living in poverty. Bethany was the place where Simon the leper lived. If you were a leper, you weren't allowed to be amongst society, amongst friends and family. And if you walked by, you literally had to say, I'm a leper coming by, unclean, unclean. But Jesus found his refuge. He found his safe place. He found his connection. He found fellowship in Bethany, right? This place that's called house of affliction. And so I want to read another quote from Desire of Ages, page 640. And here's what she says. She says, many feel that it would be a great privilege to visit the scenes of Christ's life on earth. No doubt, right? Some people are like, hey, I want to go to Jerusalem. I want to walk where Jesus walked. I want to go by the seaside where he taught, and the hills and the valleys and everywhere that Jesus, wherever he rested, I want to go check it out. And people go to the Holy Land, as they call it, those Holy Land excursions, and nothing wrong with that. But she brings out this beautiful point. She says, but you don't have to go to Nazareth, and you don't have to go to Capernaum. And here it is, you don't have to go to Bethany. There's Bethany, this village, in order to walk in the steps of Jesus. Why? Why don't I have to go over there to see where he walked? Here's what she says. She says, we shall find his footprints, beside the sickbed, in the hovels of poverty, in the crowded alleys of the great city, and in every place where there are human hearts in need of consolation. In doing as Jesus did when on earth, we shall walk in his steps. That's Desire of Ages 640. So here, Ellen G. White letting us know that, hey, if you want to walk in the footsteps of Jesus, you don't have to go, right? You don't have to go to Bethany, but you can go to places like Bethany here, right? The places where people are, like she says, the sick, people who are in poverty, people who need, where the need is the greatest, so to speak. And so this is like a twofold devotional that I want you to think about for yourself today. Is number one, do you have a Bethany? And that place is where you can go and you can feel safe and you can kind of just rest. And I want you to think about that. Jesus's last week, this Passion Week, before he's about to literally save the world, die for the sins of the world, he's going to go to the cross. He's going to be betrayed by one of his own disciples. And even he's going to be crucified by the church and the state, right? It's the church and the state that come together. The church, the religious people, they're mad at him. They're angry. There's jealousy. There's strife. And they don't want him. They literally want him crucified. And then they get the state involved, the Roman Empire, to crucify Jesus. And where does Jesus spend? Where does he retire, right, before he's arrested? Often, he heads back to Bethany. Bethany is the place, like I say, where he can connect. Bethany is that place that he feels safe. Bethany is the place of his pure friendships. And so do you have a Bethany in your life where God, when you've created those places and it's just like, I go here just to be and just to connect, right? Because Jesus, even Jesus, the Son of God, had his Bethany. And second part of that is Bethany means house of affliction. here's the King of the universe. When we look at kings and powerful people today, it's like, I don't know if they're about to take on the world, if they're about to, do a huge project to accomplish something great. I don't know if they go to the house of affliction or the house of poverty. I don't know if we ourselves, I don't know if we go to places that maybe those are places that we kind of avoid, and yet Jesus goes there. His heart is with the people who are down and out. His heart is for the people who are the nobodies in society. Jesus has compassion. Jesus has, this longing for people who are either sick or are outcast or socially, been ostracized, or, you know, he even said it. I didn't come for those, that are healthy. I came for the sick, right? I came for those who are hurting. I came for those who are broken. I came for those who know that they need a savior, right? I came for those who know that, man, like, I'm hurt, I'm broken, I need the Lord. And that's where Jesus spent, you know, his time. He spent his time with these people. And I think that sometimes we need places like that in our life to put things into reality. Because so often you and I can complain over little things. But when we are around places in life where we see, man, there's suffering and there's pain and there's sorrow and there's hurt, and we get there and we're there to serve, it shifts our focus and our perspective. It teaches us to count our blessings. It shows us how to have compassion. And oftentimes, I know I'm speaking from just from experience, when you've gone to bless people, really, they bless you. You think you're going to bless people, but you receive that blessing as well. It's like this two-way street. So I just want you to think about is, do you have your Bethany? The place that is your safe place that you connect, but also the place that puts things into perspective in your life, so that when you're about to go through something that's difficult, you're going to go through something that is like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go through this, but you go to that Bethany where people are hurting, and you're connecting and you're serving, and it teaches you to be grateful. It kind of just brings us, back down to say, life is more than just chasing the money. Life is more than just, my little problems. Life is more than just my negativity or whatever I'm focusing on in the moment. But it includes us, but it's also bigger than us. And it's about all of us connecting and loving one another. So family, that's all we got for today. I pray blessing upon your life, and stay tuned for Wednesday as Pastor Robbins brings this